Most people were taught to follow the rules with money. Save it, spend it, borrow it, pay interest, hope retirement works out. But what if the rules were written by the very system keeping you stuck? Welcome to Cashflow Legendz, the show where we challenge conventional financial thinking, expose the hidden leaks in your cash flow, and help families and business owners build more control, certainty, and legacy. This show is for educational purposes only, not financial, tax, or legal advice. Hosted by Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Money, cash flow, legacy. Break the rules. Build your legend.
Brock and Nate, we are excited that we are getting to sit here today and visit about somewhere that we just came back from. We were all at Nashville at the 10-year summit where I said this yesterday to somebody, the amount of value that was in that room, sharing client experiences for people with pain points that are dealing with things daily, and how we can go out and be better stewards of the information we have there was a lot of value that came from that time. So, Brock, one of the topics that we focused on was offense versus defense as it relates to, our money and how it's flowing. And it's really the financial strategy that no one is ever taught. So the person listening today, if you hear offense versus defense, you're probably like, what the heck are you talking about related to money? But if you get this and you take action on it, it's going to go a long ways in helping you get peace of mind on how your money flows through your life. So, Brock, at a high level, offense versus defense, why are we not taught this?
Brandon, I think, and we're already starting off guns blazing here, but I think what I'm about to say is maybe against what you're saying, but it's not offense versus defense, it's offense and defense.
Yep, you're right. My bad.
Because you
You're
want
right.
you want both, right?
Yes.
But the process that we're talking about here is the fact that we all live on two parallel paths, right? The protection path and the wealth accumulation path. And the reason we're on those two paths is because of the way money works over time, right? You got to put money in consistently. You got to get a consistent rate of return. You got to build this over time. That's why we have things called time value of money, right? And the reason that we're on those two paths is because if you looked at your financial world, for you to get that curve, to get that compound interest over time, everything in your world has to work. It has to work itself out, right? But for it not to work out, only one thing has to happen. It could be a lawsuit, it could be a disability, it could be a market downturn, it could be raising taxes, inflation, premature death. Like, you have all of these things. And so what you want to be able to do is protect your life, your what I call the three catastrophic risks of life, so that your money has the opportunity to grow. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And I think there'll be a lot of instances that come up where we talk about championship teams and why defense wins championships.
That's good, Brock. And for those of you who haven't listened to us before, Brock and Nate keep me in line because sometimes I get so fired up that I say the wrong thing, which is proof that we need good people around us that call us out, because I am unlearning to this day a system that told me that offense is in competition with defense, and I had to choose as it relates to my money. It was always, I can't do both simultaneously, or I can't do one before the other to make the other better. So this brings up a real good point. That was a slip on my part, but it actually is how most of our client interactions go. They feel like they're choosing between offense or defense and that they're in competition with each other. So, Nate, when we visit with clients, sometimes we hear things like, I've been thinking about this wrong. They're not competing strategies. They're actually roles that support one another. So when you have that conversation with that first time call with somebody that calls in, Nate, talk about some ways that you help them understand that pairs with what Brock just talked about.
Well, I actually just had a call yesterday with someone who's interested in going through our process, but had not really heard our perspective on human life value and kind of reframing what that really means for someone. And as I walked through that with her and showed her how our human life value is really our future value of our present cash flow. And we get to decide, we get to make the choice on how much of that we want to keep in our family. That really opened up her eyes to what she was really about to get into, because initially because she had read Becoming Your Own Banker, she'd been learning about infinite banking. And so initially she was like, yeah, I want to create my own banking system. I want to, build out this cash flow strategy. But we just took it a layer deeper to where there was emotion that came through that conversation. It wasn't just surface level thinking in terms of this is a strategy I want to participate in, but now we connected the head to the heart to where, man, this becomes something way bigger than what we realized it was to begin with.
That's good, Nate. Brock, you talk to a lot of business owners that are younger entrepreneurs making lots of money. So I'm going to throw out a few things and you tell me if you've seen this before or if these things are true or if you're just, I'm making this up. Okay. Business owners almost always are chasing growth. They're investing in something aggressively. Their business, the market for high rates of return, whatever you want to frame it as, but aggressively is definitely there. I'd say probably if they're full scale entrepreneurs, they actually enjoy or think they enjoy that wave riding, so to speak. Market shifts, tax hits, cash crunches. And it's this repetitive cycle of feeling great, lots of peace of mind because I got a lot of cash. And then I need to go take action on that investment. And oh no, it didn't go the way I thought. Then you feel exposed and reactive. So if you see that a lot, what's the piece they're missing? How do you help them unlock that or hand them the key to unlocking the door of it doesn't have to be either or? And where do you start a lot of times?
I think I start a lot of times at the fact that when you receive a paycheck or revenue, there are only two places that that money can go: either your bank account or your retirement account. There's no other place that it can go, right? You can't call a real estate operator and say, "Hey, please contact my HR department and just collect my check." Like, that doesn't work, right? Before you go invest anywhere else, it has to reside somewhere. And a lot of times we also have to get into the nitty gritty fact of, like, if you collected your paycheck and then spent some of your paycheck and you had, $600 left over, you can't call a real estate company and give them the $600 and get a property. You have to build your cash value, your cash position up before you can actually acquire these other assets. And so the question that we have to answer is, where do we want our cash to reside?
Brock, you just simplified. Man, if I could have had you visiting with me when I started my income earning, well, actually, when I started earning income as a 13-year-old mowing, if I could have had that conversation with you, it would have simplified it to the point of, well, there's only two things that can happen. I'm 13 right now, so it's probably not going to a retirement account, so where's it going to go and what do I want it to do? So, Nate, the lie that you and I have believed, Brock has a little bit of a different angle because he didn't grow up having to unlearn like we have based off of our financial understanding and education. But the lie is you have to choose between growth or safety, returns or guarantees, offense or defense. But what's really the truth, Nate?
The truth is that most people are playing the probability that everything's going to work out the way they hope it's going to work out. And that's why the fallacy or the economic model, the financial model that most people participate in is they focus on growth, and then they try to save some money, and then with whatever money they have left over, they try to protect, which is completely backwards. And all three of us believe in the philosophy of we protect in order to save, in order to grow. And the order, to quote Brock, the order in which we do things becomes extremely important.
Did you just quote Brock and give him a big head on this recording? Don't do that.
One of the, this idea around playing great defense gives our offense better opportunities. One of the stories I like to tell is in 2016, there was this historic shootout in college football. and it was Texas Tech and Oklahoma. And Texas Tech had a quarterback named Patrick Mahomes, and he threw for 734 yards or something like that and 5 touchdowns in the game. And when you hear that, you would go, man, they blew the doors off of OU. But OU had a quarterback on the other side named Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield didn't throw for as many yards, but he threw for 7 touchdowns instead of 5 touchdowns. And so the final score of the game was 66-59. And, in the game of life, if you put up 59 points with all these padded stats and everything like that, but life puts up 66, you still lost. And, that's one of the things that's so dangerous when we don't protect the things that we're able to protect, is because we're not assuming that life is going to put more on us than we can handle. But every day we wake up, something happens that we did not expect.
And Nate, it reminds me of when Nelson said, we don't live in an if world. We live in a when world. When this happens, when that happens. If is all just projection and possibility until when happens. So Brock, let's think about Nate's great point, and let's pair it with how we view money for anybody listening. If our offense is amazing, and Brock, you and Nate and I and many others of our buddies that love sports have been on teams like this. If our offense is amazing, but our defense is rotten, we're constantly playing from behind. If our defense is strong, but we never take shots, we don't win either. We need both, but they're not competing. They're coordinated.
Yep.
So on the most successful teams, and I always think about the New England Patriots. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I think about them in all those years when they were so awesome. Their defense was not going to give up high-scoring games, which allowed their offense not to freak out if they took a chance, if they bet on themselves, if they recovered, and tried to run a play that was maybe 50-50 and they didn't feel great about it. They knew their defense was there backing them up. So they're not competing, Brock. So help that framing come together for the person listening right now going, okay, that makes a lot of sense, but how do I really think about that in action?
Right.
Practically.
That's great. And I'll add 2 things to that. I think about if you could do this in ChatGPT, Claude, whatever you want, Gemini. If you go look at Nick Saban's dynasty and you ask it about the defensive stats versus the offensive stats, you would be amazed by what the defense allowed it to do. Now, at the same rate, I can say personally that so when I was in high school, my junior year of high school, we probably had one of the best teams in the country. Our starting rotation of pitching was a Vanderbilt pitcher, a Tennessee pitcher, an Arkansas pitcher, and our catcher was going to Alabama. And our ERA for the entire season never got over 1.5.
Wow.
But our offense couldn't hit. We couldn't, we were fine. We never capitalized. We were never able to score runners in score runners in scoring positions. Right. And so we ended up losing in the second round of the playoffs because it was just like, nobody can beat us on defense. But when it came to us playing our offensive side, we didn't really have much. And so there's always, you need a balance of both in those. And I think the first place that I think about this, the most easiest call to action, the thing that you can do is a lot of people think that emergency funds are for emergency funds. And yes, technically they are there to pay for emergencies. But the reality is they do 3 more important things. If an unforeseen expense comes along, the first thing that it does is it protects you from destroying or cutting back on your lifestyle, right? Because if you didn't have the emergency fund, the first thing that you might have to do is cut out a bunch of stuff from your current life so that you could pay for that expense. The second thing that it could protect you from is going into consumer or bad debt. Because if you don't have cash, if you don't have the money to pay for the unforeseen expense, well, then you have to go into consumer debt to then help try and pay it off. And the third, which is probably, I think, the most important piece that we're talking about here, is if you have investments and you could pay for that expense with the investments, you would have to liquidate those investments to pay off the unforeseen expense. And what I'm telling you here is if you were to do the math, taking money out of a portfolio versus pausing your contributions, when you take the money out of that portfolio, it does so much more damage than just pausing it. And so that emergency fund allows your investments to continue to compound rather than you having to liquidate them or go into consumer debt or cut back on your lifestyle. So that defensive part allows your offense to work the way it's supposed to.
So it's kind of a season of life where bend but don't break defense is occurring. That offense pushes the defense down, but you're the defensive team, and you're like, we're giving up yardage little by little, and they're getting closer and closer to the goal line, but they never score. As opposed to just go ahead and score because we can't stop you, and the impact that has over and over and over again. So here's where we see people getting it wrong, and when we say people, we mean myself included, Nate included, Brock included, in the sense of this is an ongoing thing that we have to remind ourselves and be around. And that's why we love going to, like the events that we were at this past week, because it's people challenging you to think about how you think. But here's what we see often. And Nate, tell me if you see this in any specific example recently in your interactions with people calling in and wanting to see how we implement this. An overweight offense, most common financially. Okay. They think diversification equals protection. Just let that sink in. Diversification does not equal protection. Not in the sense of what we were talking about with defense, making your offense stronger and how they can work together. Okay, they coexist. You think about it, offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. They ought to make each other better on the best staffs. All right. There's no liquidity, which forces bad decisions, which is what Brock just described. When life doesn't go according to plan, when, not if. And then the other is no system. Boy, I'm guilty of this, and I'm trying to break it. No system, which leads to reactive moves, not reasonable, thoughtful, planned moves. Because we react when we're panicked, and we're panicked when we don't have peace of mind to handle an unforeseen situation. Don't ask me how I know that so well, but I do, which is why I love what Nate and I and Brock and I get to do on a daily basis. So, Nate, what do you see the most often? Let's take your last 10 to 15 calls you've had. People are like, hey, I've read Become Your Own Banker. I'm not sure how to implement it, but it kind of makes sense. And here's where I am. What do you see? Do you see money locked up in certain places and there's an opportunity to reposition with peace of mind? What do you see? Cash flow issues?
Yeah. So this reminds me, if y'all are getting any kind of value from this conversation, please, feel free to like, subscribe, share, all those fun things. I think the biggest thing that I see often is regret in not knowing about their options to do something different sooner. Going back to what you said about money being locked up in places, oftentimes there's people who are like, if I only knew what I know now, this money wouldn't be sitting over here doing this. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things is regret, but also a lot of encouragement because now they know what the problem is that they've created for themselves. They know kind of what they're trying to solve for, and they know that now they have a team around them to lock arms with and go accomplish those things.
Here's some practical questions for anyone listening right now that's like, man, Brock and Nate and Brandon actually are saying some things that kind of make sense. Practical question to answer, and we hear this all the time. So if opportunity showed up tomorrow, could you act or are you stuck? The number of times I've heard in the last 8 years, once they've read Become Your Own Banker and they begin to rethink their thinking, and remember, Nate and I's ULC members are typically often W-2, and they have money locked away in places or cash flow being locked away. And they're like, man, I don't even find opportunities because I don't look for them anymore because I can't pick. You know what I mean? All I can do is focus on earning income and getting it into that place. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for there might be a better way to see how that money's flowing and what can be done. So here's another one. If things went sideways, Brock, and everybody listening, you determine what sideways is. I can almost guarantee you, if you've lived any life, you've already experienced some version of sideways. Lawsuit in your life, unexpected. Death in the family, unexpected. Somebody getting sick in your family, unexpected. Business shutting down, unexpected. COVID. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If that sideways occurred, what actually protects you? And you keep living the life you're living with peace of mind when sideways occurs. And then I really like this one, Brock, because this is going to be tied into currents, which we haven't talked about currents directly. But do you have a system or just accounts? And man, that has come up so often lately with our clients, our members, because they have all these accounts that give them what they think is peace of mind, but they're not working together. And they are continuously behind, and they haven't figured out how to yet describe the solution because they've never been shown one.
Yeah.
So Brock, on those, and I really think it's invaluable that Nate and I have a different angle of people that come to us often than you, because we have a lot of people in our ecosystem that are our members that want to become business owners. They see the appeal in that and they have a heart to help people, but they just don't know how to get there. Well, you're dealing with and interacting with business owners often, but you're seeing the downfalls of that if you don't know the rules of the game. So the beauty of how the Lord does his thing is he paired us together to go, hey, yeah, being a business owner is very valuable if you feel called to do it. There's a lot of value there. But Brock and I and Nate often see business owners who are exhausted because they hit an invisible ceiling they don't know how to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So Brock, what would you say to that? And just in general as encouragement?
I think it goes back to realizing first that you are your greatest investment. You are your number one asset. And as business owners, some of those things that you protect yourself with are the things that help with your time and peace of mind, which could be hiring help, right? One thing that I think oftentimes is, let's say that you're a business owner and you have $60,000 that you could invest today. You could put that in the market. You could put that in a real estate property. You could do all these things, or you could set that $60,000 aside and say, hey, I'm going to hire an employee to take care of all of these things that drain energy from me and cause me stress, anxiety, slowness in my business. And I'm going to hire a person strictly for that in the hopes that it will increase my revenue, it'll increase my time, and it'll increase my peace of mind. And a lot of times business owners just don't take that step back and say, wait a second, what if I just invest in my business rather than something in the market? Because the likelihood is when you invest in an employee, they should drastically improve the revenue in your business because it frees you up to do the things that you're best at, which is likely doing more of the business, because most business owners start out by themselves and then along the way they start hiring help so that they can get back to doing more of that. Well, take a step back if you're a business owner and hire one of those protection pieces so that you can expand your system, your business, your life.
Good. Nate, would you add anything to that?
Well, yeah, and I think you can kind of bring this down to the personal economy for someone and use the example of why I pay someone to mow my yard. I'm fully capable of mowing my yard, but that is not the best use of my time.
What are you smiling about, Brock?
Where I have had this conversation before.
Okay. Well, it reminds me yesterday, and I'll kind of tie it all together with this. Yesterday, we were visiting with somebody that's very successful in our world, and his dad's been very successful. And his dad says one of the greatest tools he has in his toolbox is his checkbook. And boy, that just stuck with me
Yeah.
because it pushes back against conventional, air quote, expertise and wisdom and guidance. And it brings to reality that we can't be experts at everything. And if we try to be, it will have a net negative result.
Yeah.
Which is what Brock's point was about bringing somebody on. And for my business owners out there, because we're all business owners here, it may not go perfect the first time, but it's going to give you clarity for the second time and the third time. So you can't be, well, this just doesn't work, because you're going to stay right where you are. And one of my favorite things that we get to say to business owners in any capacity when they start realizing how defense can support what they're already great at and actually create more peace of mind is they go, well, I can go make as much money as I possibly can doing what I love doing. because I now know how to protect it and how to make it work better for what I'm trying to do. So this is not about anything other than understanding the rules of the game and what's going on. So you don't necessarily need better investments. You need a better structure. And the more peace of mind you have in that structure, the more peace of mind you have in what you do next. You may decide to throw that 25-yard down and out, on 3rd and 10, just because your defense is going to protect that move and it's calculated. So if any of this resonates with anybody that's a business owner, and remember, your personal economy in your house with your kids and your family is a business, whether you like it or not, book a call with us or spend time listening to our other podcasts and reach out to us on our social media. If you find Brock, Nate, or I on any of our social medias and you message us, we will get you on our calendar. We are working on making it so easy for you to reach out that the only reason you don't is because you can't get over the fear of betting on yourself and investing in yourself. Just keep listening to us till you get over that, because that's where Nate and I were 8 years ago. We know it's a big step and it takes a lot of time. Until the next one, we hope this brought value to you. We hope that it made you think about how you think. And as Nelson said often, once we know what the problem is, we'll know what to do, and the solution becomes very simple. Have a blessed one.
Thanks for listening to Cashflow Legendz. If this episode helped you think differently, subscribe to the show and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And when you're ready to start building your own cash flow system, schedule a clarity call with Nate using the link in the description. Money, cash flow, legacy, break the rules. Build your legend.